No public hearings, and we are foregoing the information discussion items this evening. We're going to action items. Action item P1, approval of the strategic plan, district beliefs, mission statement, strategic goals, strategic objectives, and parameters. Linda Luna, Superintendent.
Thank you, President Cruz, Board of Trustees. This evening, we're bringing forward to you the mission statement and the beliefs, strategic objectives and strategies and parameters that were identified from the Strategic Planning Committee. In the transmittal here, you have the actual documentation written out for the board to review once again. And what the administration is asking for tonight is that we have the board approve this first section of the strategic plan so that we can move forward in creating the action teams, which will be staff that will later reflect the work that we will be carrying on in the following school year. Before the board takes action, what I would like to do is invite up one of our community members who was part of our strategic planning committee. He was very, very helpful and very valuable in giving a perspective that is so critical as we move forward as a district in the future. So at this time, I know he's no stranger, but I'd like to welcome Mr. Louis Campos to share a little bit about his experience.
Thank you very much, Superintendent Luna. And also, it's a pleasure to speak before the Board of Education. And you had quite a group here to speak as well, and we all listened. And one of the things that I was listening to was in terms of a strategic plan. And I was very fortunate to be part of the community members to participate in the discussions with regards to developing this plan. We, like the superintendent says, we went through the first phase. And there will be other phases that will continue with respect to developing a sound strategic plan for the district. But one of the things that I was impressed with was the facilitator that brought us together, the expertise and the professionalism that was there at this strategic planning. You had some very, very good people from the community that were sincerely interested in terms of the future of what you do here and also of the school district, but especially the parents want to have quality education. And they want to have, if you're dealing with a strategic plan, you have to have that infrastructure in place to accomplish what you want to accomplish. Without that infrastructure, it will be very difficult, if not impossible, to accomplish what you want to accomplish. And I think that this evening, in terms of the discussion that was taking place with regards to the teachers, I worked in the medical, as a medical administrator for many, many, many years. And Katie was one of the staff people that I work with at the Department of Health Services as well. But one of the things that I learned as a healthcare administrator was that if you don't have your infrastructure in place, and let's just say physicians and medical providers and staff that support that, you may have the most beautiful buildings, but if you don't have that internal part of making it happen from the perspective of quality of medical care and all the other qualities that are connected, then you can accomplish what you want to accomplish. So a strategic plan falls apart if you don't have that in place. But one of the beliefs that, that stood out for me was and there were 9 of them, and we make 9 points, and I think you might have a copy of this, is that there was one belief that I paid attention to, and I also paid attention to the others as well. All individuals deserve to be valued and respected. We spent a lot of time talking about that particular value, and I think it's very important and when you work with the community, when you work with people, that ought to be a standout statement for all of us. In terms of the mission, I think one of the things that I liked about it was the statement of the gateway to extraordinary possibilities. And this is the mission of the Washington Unified School District. I think that if you have that kind of wording, you can't lose unless you want to. So the strategies connected also with that was that we will unify our community in culturally sensitive ways to engage all members in the education of our students. And this evening, you had many, many members, one way or the other, that are concerned about that particular statement. And I think it's also very important to engage all the community, regardless of ethnic groups, regardless of race, but engage them all and be party to listening. And I think it's very important to listen to your community and to parents that are very, very interested in seeing that their kids get a quality education. In the area of parameters, there were 6 of them, points that were made. And one of the points that stands out amongst all the others was, we will treat all people with dignity and respect. And that is very important. We need to respect you. We need to respect all in terms of that particular statement. It just can't come that you respect the community. They also need to respect you. But we have to earn the respect. Lastly, we will move forward with positive attitudes, perseverance, and hope. To do that, we have to have a commitment from the administration, the board, and you need to have a funding mechanism to accomplish this strategic plan if you are serious, and you are serious about doing that. You also need to have consistency in engaging the community. You have to have communications is vital for the community. You cannot make decisions without, well, let me put it this way. If you make decisions, try to get as much input from that community so that you can arrive at decisions. Might not please everybody, but at least you engage that participation from the community. And lastly, it is vital that if you want the community to be with you, you have to be with the community as well. And I want to thank you very much.
Thank you, Louis. I want to thank you for your participation in the strategic planning. I'm glad you were part of it. It was a pleasure working with you, hearing your ideas, hearing the history of the district. And I want to thank you for coming out and giving us your input tonight.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. You actually were on the strategic planning that I was on. I thought your input was very valuable, especially from a community member. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Louis.
With that, I need a motion to approve of the strategic plan, district beliefs, mission statement, strategic goals, strategic objectives, and the parameters.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We'll go on to item P2, 2016-2017 Board of Education meeting calendar. Superintendent Luna.
Thank you, President Cruz. We're bringing forward the regularly scheduled board meetings for the years 2016-2017. We will continue having our board meetings on the second and fourth Thursday of each month, being held here at City Hall. There are 4 months of exceptions in terms of following the second and fourth Thursday that we'd like to bring to the board's attention due to some scheduling. So in the month of July, we usually have one board meeting in the month of July as the summer, and we are looking at July 21st and having a board meeting, which is the third Thursday, because of staff vacations that have already been scheduled. That particular meeting will be held in the district office boardroom because the City Hall chambers are not available on the first and third Thursdays. The other exception falls in February. February 16th is the third Thursday, and we're requesting to have one board meeting in the month of February because of the shortened month and also the superintendent symposium that is annually scheduled at the end of January has been moved to the second week of February. Thirdly, the month of April, we have our spring break the week of April 10th through the 14th. And in order to have staff here for the board meeting, we're requesting to move the board meeting to April 6th, which is the first Thursday of that month, which will be held in the district's boardroom.
Is there any comments or questions?
Thank you for fixing the spring break.
There's nothing further. I need a motion to approve the 2016-2017 Board of Education meeting calendar.
So moved?
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Item P3, board action to review application of the California Voters' Right Act. 1, to maintain the status quo. 2, transition to by trustee area elections by adopting trustee area maps and seeking approvals. Or 3, commission on analysis of the state school district's demographics and voting history to determine potential violation. I do have a few public comments. Carlos Alcala.
Good evening. I want to thank all of you for giving me the opportunity to address you on this subject today. A little bit about my background. I was the former National Director of Education Litigation for MALDEF. I'm a former professor of education law at UC Berkeley. I wrote the voting rights chapter for Ralph Nader on the Congress Project. I'm currently the chair of the Chicano Latino Caucus of the California Democratic Party for the state. And locally, I'm the president of the Dolores Huerta Latino Democratic Club. The city of West Sacramento goes back to 1846. In 1850, it became the city of Washington. It wasn't always West Sacramento. That came later. Between 1850 and 1956, the schools here were known by many different names. And between that time, for 106 years, there were no Latinos on any school board that governed this area. For the next 50 years, between 1906 and 1956, there were, again, no Latinos on the school board. In 1956, this district became known as the Washington Unified School District. Between 1956 and 2016, that's the 50-year period I meant to address, there were no Latinos on the school board. In 2002, a gentleman named Mendez ran. I don't know if that's a Portuguese name or a Spanish surname because Mendez can be either one. Mr. Mendez lost the election. The following year, in 2006, 2 Latinos did run. I happen to know a couple of them that did run, Ray Martinez and Richard Novoa. Ray Martinez and Richard Novoa both lost. They prevailed. They came in first place in some of the northern precincts, specifically Precinct 5. Polarized voting has existed in this city since 1850. The 2006 election, in fact, they both tied for first place in the north, in the precincts. They lost in the south and lost the election. In the following year, in 2008, we had the first Latina elected to the board, and although she has an Anglo name, Teresa Blackmer, I believe she is Latina either completely or significantly.
And I'm sorry, Carlos, I'm going to have to ask you to wrap it up. Sorry.
Okay. In the other, I'm just going to say in the following elections, including yours, Ms. Cruz, you won in the north. You placed in 3, 4, and 16 in first place, as did Norma, and lost in much of the south. And that was also true for other people. If you look at the history of voting in this city, it is polarized. and it's a good time to look at it. And I urge you to support single-member districts.
Thank you. Marianne Estes?
Good evening, members, Superintendent Luna. I'm here also to discuss this matter. I urge you to vote against this item. I do not believe that there is a voting problem. As I mentioned at the last meeting, the last 2010, 12, and 14, there have been individuals from the northern area that won by they won. Whether they weren't voted in the South or not, you still had enough votes to be on this board. So I don't feel there's a problem. I mean, of course, we have a history of polarization. That's all over the United States. But we're in 2016, and right now we have 2 members that are Latina, in my opinion, that are on the board, and they're from the North area, and there have been North area representatives in the last 2 elections as well. So I feel there isn't merit in that warrants you to change into a trustee structure. I also have been raised here my whole life. I'm a graduate from Washington Unified, as is my son. I want the ability to vote for all 5 seats. That's my right, and I feel like this will take away my right to do that. And there's a lot of other members of the public that aren't even aware that this issue is being discussed. And I think if you want to do something, I think this is really going to change the climate or the tenor of West Sacramento, that it be done through ballot and let the people decide if they want to break this up into districts or not. I don't believe you 5 individuals are really overstepping your authority to take away my 5 votes. And I don't recall that being an issue of a priority when you campaign for the seats. I'd rather see you all dealing with the pressing issues that we have. You have teachers that need contracts. We have Riverbank Elementary that had to do a GoFundMe page so that they can have their graduation ceremony. There's a lot of issues that need your attention. You're supposed to govern and create policy. Created a new voting structure is outside of that. And I think you need to stay where your focus is needed, and that is to govern the schools and the policies and the students. Thank you.
Thank you. I know we had a lot of discussion about this last board meeting, and I apologize I was not here. I was ill, but I did watch from home. At this time, is there any more board comments?
If I would be permitted 5 minutes. I've often spoken about single-member districts and how they promote democracy, accountability, and parental involvement. But what they also create is campaign finance reform that reduces the corrupting influence of money in all elections. In his speech to the League of Women Voters this year, President Obama called for reducing the influence of money in our politics so that a handful of families or hidden interests can't bankroll our elections. As school board members, we should be looking at campaign reform that makes our elections more responsive to the people we represent. Campaign reform includes all manner of changes that reduce the corrupting influence of money in our school board elections. Public financing of campaigns is one of the methods recommended by the League of Women Voters to reduce the corrupting influence of money in our elections. Converting to single-member districts is another method of reducing the cost of elections. At-large districts make school board elections 5 times more expensive in West Sacramento than they need to be if the elections were by district. At-large elections make it necessary for candidates to school board to turn to special interests for campaign funding. Why do charter school PACs, real estate developers, the rich, and other special interests give donations? Sometimes political convictions might be the reason, but a far more likely explanation is they seek to influence public policy and public spending in their favor. In an era when school districts are underinvested, the rich want lower tax rates, and the charter schools wish to privatize education, taking public resources. We make their jobs easier by failing our voters. The policies that the special interests want in low taxes for the rich and less resources for the schools are at odds with the best interest of our children in our district. We fail them when we do not adopt campaign reform that makes elections less expensive rather than more expensive. We fail the middle class, which is a huge loser to special interest. Only 2% of those questioned felt the government helped the middle class rather than banks during the Great Recession. Campaign reform returns power to the little guy, and ultimately, their priorities like good education and not privatization as an end in itself become the goal. Board members, campaign reform through making elections less expensive protects the public from the corrupting influence of money in elections. When you make an election less expensive, it is not the candidate for office that wins, it is democracy. It is the people. How can they expect us to vote purely in the voters' interests when our system requires each of us to pay for mailers, campaign literature, and advertising? Board members, it's not your money that will be spent on that literature. It is the money of your contributors, or even my contributors. Ironically, one of the arguments that Donald Trump made before today was that he self-financed and therefore could not be corrupted. That argument resonated with voters looking for change. I am no fan of Mr. Trump's, the bigot, but I understand why some people bought his argument. Expensive elections mean more political influence for big donors. Mark Hanna, a political fixer for then-President McKinley, once observed, "There are two things that are important in politics. The first is money, and I can't remember what the second one is." I prefer the view of Franklin Roosevelt, who stated, "We now know that government by organized money is as dangerous as government by organized mob." You may reason that Alicia and I are on the board now, so why change the electoral system? I will tell you why. It is precisely because Alicia and I are now on the board that we can change the electoral system to a fair and honest system. We have the power to enact campaign reform. The cost of drawing up maps is $5,000. Our democracy is being reshaped by special interest money in elections. To be sure, changing to single-member districts will make elections less expensive and reduce corrupting influences because no one on this board will need to seek out $5,000 checks. But is it enough? Of course not. We should look at public financing of our elections, we should have fair districting, and we should have complete disclosure of donors. And we should not have expensive at-large elections that promote the corrupting influence of money. At-large elections are not in the interest of the middle class. They promote self-interest and special interest. We need to look no further than the assembly race right next door to find the buying and selling of elections. Assembly candidate Cecilia Aguirre Curry has received $1 million in contributions and independent expenditures from tobacco, oil, realtors, and charter schools. If elected, how will she vote on offshore oil drilling? The oil and gas industries use their money not only to oppose climate change policies, but to exploit public resources for pennies on the dollar. California is the only government in the world with no oil severance tax. Campaigns are an investment for special interests with huge returns. Between 1995 and 2007, taxes on the rich special interests fell from 30% to 16%. This was an average reduction of $46 million for the richest 400 people. California was at the center of the storm as our schools fell from the best to 49th. California schools now see chronic deficits and insufficient funds for education and job training, areas where we are rapidly falling behind the rest of the world. During the health care discussion, Bernie Sanders said, "You know what it all comes down to? Do you know why we can't do what every other major country on earth is doing? It's because we have campaign finance system that is corrupt. We have super PACs. We have the pharmaceutical industry pouring hundreds of millions of dollars into campaign contributions and lobbying, and the private insurance companies as well. Just as Congress is compromised, we, as WUSD Board trustees, are compromised by at-large elections that serve to emphasize the importance of money in our elections. The time to reform is now, and I ask each of you to set your own self-interest aside and vote for campaign reform through the elimination of at-large districts in WUSD. I move that we transition to by trustee area elections by adopting trustee area maps and seeking approvals at the county and state level."
Thank you.
Get a second.
Board Member Pizzotti?
Yeah, I think I recall during our last conversation about this, that being in the business that I am, I've dealt with demographics and the drawing of lines for quite some time. And one of my core beliefs in being in government for a very long time is that, the closer you can bring the government to the people, the better off you are. And so, at my heart, I believe in smaller districts. However, with that said, I also made a proposal that we hold off on drawing any lines until after the 2020 census. And when I looked at this proposal, there was none of the plan that I mentioned put forward. There's only 3 options, and none of them were the ones that I mentioned. So I don't know what happened, if that didn't get incorporated or if not, but I cannot support making the drawing of any lines immediate.
Board Member Kirby Gonzalez?
Thank you. Thank you for coming out and speaking to the people that shared. We've talked about this many times, and I think to be fair, I want to share a few things again about my thoughts before I vote, so you know where I stand on this in case you haven't heard some of the other discussions. I think a lot of important points have been made, and I think that this is coming from a place of wanting equity and really wanting to make sure all voices in West Sacramento are heard. And so I do appreciate that, and I have been listening and a lot throughout the discussions that we've had over months and months. I'm still having a difficult time with taking the power of people to vote for 5 people and taking it to 1. If that's something that's on the ballot, then I'd feel really comfortable with all of West Sacramento having a say in that. But when I go, say, to my neighborhood park, nobody has talked to me about this issue. When I was elected, people did not tell me that this was their issue that they really wanted me to come in and fight for. And there's power in 5 votes and having 5 votes. I certainly understand the power in being able to elect your neighbor as well. But I don't feel comfortable making a change from 5 to 1 sitting here in this place. If it came from the community, that would be different. I don't feel comfortable with that here. And we also have our legal opinion. I've read through it. I've looked through. I was trying to see one of the comments that was made tonight about elections and folks winning in their neighborhood. I did just go and look up the 2006 race. I've gone through all of them. I hadn't seen anyone who was winning their neighborhoods and not winning or coming in second. Everyone up here has, except for Mr. Posadi, who has not run a race yet, has run and won their neighborhood first or second and has gotten a seat on the board. And if that hadn't been happening, that would cause a lot of reason for alarm to me. If people were winning in their neighborhood, winning their groups, and they weren't having a seat here, then I would have a big cause for concern. After reading through legal opinion, I feel confident that we're not in violation right now. I know that your points are moving forward and for the future. But where we stand right now, I don't feel comfortable supporting this. I was asked when I was running for election what I thought about this, and I was very open then as well. I can see the need in areas. I didn't see the need at the time in West Sacramento, and I don't see the need right now. Might that change? Might that change with census or things that happen? Possibly, but I just don't feel comfortable sitting here in this room and taking away people's right to vote for 5 people, because we know it takes 5 people, well, 3, right? If you have a board of 5 people to make change, 1 person is not enough. They can be passionate about your issue, but if they can't convince their board colleagues, you're not going to get it. You have to have power with your vote in terms of multiple people up here. And I don't feel comfortable doing that, especially when as I said, go to the park, go to other places, and people don't know that we're having this discussion here. When I say to some of my neighbors, we're having these talks in the boardroom, I haven't heard support. And I've certainly heard support in this room when folks have come. But again, in this position on the board, I don't feel comfortable.
Board Member Villegas, did you have anything?
Thank you, Sarah, for your comments, and I agree with everything that you've said. And I don't want to have to reiterate that, but I think folks know how I feel on this. I think it's divisive. I don't think it's the time for it. I agree with our legal opinion that says we're not in violation, and I'd just rather move forward with this issue and be done with it.
And I wasn't here to talk. I appreciate everybody that came out last time to talk. I appreciate the folks that came out tonight that talked. And while I understand the concern and thoughts of part of our community, I think we would have to disagree with some of the statements. I would have to disagree with some of the statements and accusations that were being made. I mean, I was talked about as being from the north side. The north side, if you've been to these meetings recently, I'm tired of hearing about the north, south, east, and west. I would like to say WUSD in West Sacramento. Is there a difference in demographics, how people are represented? Definitely yes. But instead of continuing to divide, let's be part of the solution. I encourage people that are interested in being on the school board to run in the next election. I don't care what nationality you are, what socioeconomic area you're from, what side of town you are from. All I care about is you're running for the school board because you care about the education of our children. And I didn't hear that last time, and I'm not hearing that tonight. I'm hearing demographics, I'm hearing this, but nothing about the children. And this is what we're all here for. I was hoping to hear at this meeting that we were discussing more about children. We approve, as a board, we approve matters and support all students and all staff at all of our school sites. If as a community member, you feel like we, the board, are not supporting school sites equally, then we need to talk. I can tell you that we make decisions in what will be the best for all of our students in West Sacramento. We do not always make their families happy, but you elected us to do that. You elected us to do what is best for all of our students. Yes, I was raised in Broderick and Bright. Yes, I know many feel equality is not the same. But I also need to tell parents to get involved. Only you can help make a difference in your schools and your children's education. I work full-time. I'm not rich. I live paycheck to paycheck like most, but I have a voice, and that costs nothing. So again, I encourage anybody to run for school board. You do not need thousands of dollars. You should run because of your beliefs, you wanting to make a difference. And for me, it does not matter if we are an at-large district or a single-member district, as long as whoever's on the board is serving the children of West Sacramento. I am sorry if I disappointed some of you. I've made lots of friends tonight, I'm sure. I'm talking from my heart and my beliefs, and you can agree to disagree with me and start uniting West Sacramento. My number one question has always been about the Voting Rights Act. Are we in violation of the California Voting Rights Act? After hearing reports and consulting with our attorney, the answer for me is no. So if we're wrong, I'm sure down the line a group of folks that will legally tell us we're wrong. I'll be glad to talk with anyone interested in running for school board and share my experience, and hope you will continue to support me as I am here to do the right thing for all of our students. And again, I'm talking from the heart, and I think we are well represented up here. One of my questions was, what if I lived in Southport? I was raised in Broderick and Bright. Does that mean if I live in Southport, I'm not going to support Broderick and Bright? No. I am supporting all of our children, all of our school sites, and I hope more people do come forward and run. And I, unfortunately, for some people, I am not for this at this time. Are there any more comments or questions?
No, I think the board has already spoken. I feel just, I want to say that I believe single-member districts, again, engage and empower our community. They make people much more accountable to the constituencies, much more aware of problems that are going on. But the board has made their feelings known, and I'm going to respect that. I'm sure if we are in violation, someone will certainly let us know.
Thank you all for the conversation, and I need a motion to approve the board action to review the application of the California Voting Rights Act.
So moved. Do you need a direction on that? Maintain
This is
status
an
quo?
action item to approve it.
To approve the
The
three options, I thought, right?
I thought you need to pick an option.
Pick an option, yeah, that's what I was going to say. One, maintain the status quo.
Okay, let me restate that.
Sorry.
Board action to review, I need a motion to approve the board action to review application of the California Voter Rights Act. Let's start with number 1, to maintain the status quo. Is there a motion to approve with number 1?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Nay.
Abstain.
Did you get that, Ashley? Thank you. Do I need a motion to go forward with item number 2? I assume that we have made our motion.
3-2.
Are we good with that? Okay, thank you. Item P4, is Yolanda still here? Is Yolanda still here?
I don't believe we have staff here still, but if I can just bring the board back to the last board meeting in which the staff from Elkhorn Village, in starting the dual immersion Spanish program, brought forward to the board to adopt the curriculum for the use of this, the new dual immersion class. There are only 2 curriculars that are actually state-approved, and so we will be using one of the state-approved, and that's what's being brought forward tonight.
Is there any comments or questions on the approval adoption of the McGraw-Hill Marvelous Curriculum in Spanish Language Arts and Dual Immersion Program at Elkhorn Village?
Nope.
Great.
With that, I need a motion to approve the adoption of the McGraw-Hill curriculum.
So moved.
Is
I'll
there a
second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 We are to item P5, approval of number 1516-26 for the purchase of one-to-one devices for teacher and student use. Kim Harrison, Director of Technology.
Good evening, President Cruz, Board of Trustees, and Superintendent Luna, and Cabinet. I'm here tonight to bring to you our board resolution for a new Chromebook model that we'd like to purchase. Historically, we've been purchasing Lenovo devices, and they are the nice flip touchscreen fancy devices that we've brought before you and shared with you. The thing with Chromebooks is they have a shelf life. And after a certain number of years, they will no longer connect with our domain, and they will no longer update. They are what I would consider a disposable device. Right now, we have approximately 2,500 of the Lenovo Chromebooks in the district being used by staff and by students. And rather than buy more of this model that will expire in about 3 years, we want to go with a new model that will extend the life of the Chromebooks for that second phase, and then we'll come back with a third model in a new phase. So we will basically be building in an obsolescence plan based upon how the Chromebooks work. The WSCA contract I brought to you in October for the models that we were using, the Hewlett-Packard and the Lenovo, does not include the model that we would like to purchase going forward, which is a new model called CTL. It's being purchased, it actually just received a contract for the state of Nevada. It's a flip Chromebook, similar to the Lenovo, and it is also a touchscreen Chromebook, which Google just released Android apps on Chrome, so it makes that touch functionality really important going forward. So we will only be buying touch screens going forward with Chromebooks. So the resolution I bring before you tonight is to enter into a joint agreement that allows us to have the discounted pricing through the multiple agency pricing, and this is a contract out of Texas that California is piggybacking on, and it allows us to be able to purchase these Chromebooks at a very discounted rate, which makes it really nice for us in our budgets. So that is what I'm bringing to you tonight, to be able to look at a different model than what we've been purchasing going forward for our next round of innovative educators and our students.
Is there any comments or questions?
Yeah, I
Board
have a
Member
couple of
Pizzani?
questions.
Okay.
Thank you. What is the shelf life for one of the Lenovo Chromebooks that we currently use?
I believe that there is no set hard fast date. They give you a general date, and it's a month and a year, and I believe it is 1919, and I think it's July 1919. 2019, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say,
Thank
wait,
you.
what?
Wow, it's been a long night. 2019,
Thank you.
and we
So-
started purchasing those a year ago.
Okay, so 3 years. Okay, how much do the new Chromebooks cost?
They are under $300.
And how much do the old ones cost?
The Lenovo's, when we were purchasing them with the same functionality and features, were over $400.
Okay. And then what is the new Chromebooks shelf life?
I believe it goes to 2021, September 2021,
Perfect.
I believe. When we look at Chromebooks, that's one of the first things we look at when we look at different models, is Google does, if you Google end of life or Chromebook end of life, it lists all the models and the dates, and then that's our starting point, because we want something that will give us the longest life. And this is a brand-new model. If approved tonight, we will actually get on a queue to be able to even purchase these starting in July, because they're just flying off the shelves.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Board Member Kirby Gonzalez?
Hi, thank you. Can you, so you said this is the next step. Is there, how many more phases are there? This is phase 2, I think.
Well, we have about 2,500 Chromebooks, and so if
Okay.
we're looking at a true one-to-one, we're kind of breaking it into 3 phases.
Okay.
But there's a lot of factors that factor into that.
Okay.
We may have to move it to 4 phases.
Okay. So the simple version would be this is phase 2 of 3.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, that's the intention. But again, we will make sure that by the time the first round starts to expire, we'll have something to replace that.
Okay. All right, thank you.
And can I just add, when they expire, they can still be used. They just will not automatically update with new versions, and they would not connect to our domain. So in terms of our environment, they wouldn't be as useful, but if we were to consider a take-home device for students, it would be something we could repurpose for students going forward. So that's always a
Just
possibility.
Give them to board members.
Or give them to board members.
Thank
Any
you.
more questions or comments? I do need a motion to approve. Thank you,
moved.
Kim, sorry. Approve the number 1516-26 for purchase of one-to-one devices.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Kim.
Thank you.
No, it didn't say resolution. It says approval of.
Oh, approval.
Okay. I was wondering, that's why it was it is a resolution, so let me take a roll call vote. Board Member Pizzati?
Aye.
Board Member Alcala? Board Member Villegas?
Aye.
Board Member Kirby Gonzalez?
Aye.
And I too vote aye. Item P6, approval of resolution number 1516-27, ordering governing board member election and requesting the Yolo County Board of Supervisors to consolidate district elections with elections held November 8, 2016. Superintendent Luna?
Thank you, President Cruz, Board of Trustees. The district currently has 3 Board of Education trustee positions and 1 Yolo County Board of Education trustee area number 3 position up for election. This particular resolution is a request for the Washington Unified School District to join the Yolo County's election being held in November 2016.
Any comments or questions? I need a motion to.
moved.
Second.
It's a resolution, so it's a roll call vote. Board Member Kirby Gonzalez.
Aye.
Board Member Villegas.
Aye.
Board Member Pizzati.
Aye.
Board Member Alcala.
Aye.
I too vote aye. I do need a motion. It is 10 o'clock. I need a motion to continue on.
So moved?
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Item P7, approval of the 2007 certification of participation, the arbitrage rebate report, Scott Landsberg.
What you have in front of you is you have a report. If you recall, in 2007, the district issued a certificate of participation as part of the financing mechanism for the River City High School. That certificate of participation is a tax-deferred bond. And part of having the bond program is we have to go back and evaluate interest earned on the program. This particular certificate of participation had a debt reserve fund of $4.76 million. That debt reserve fund was then reinvested, and that investment earned interest. The way the program is set up with the federal government is they want you to earn as much interest as possible because they'd like to have some of it too. So there's a maximum amount of interest that you can earn when you have a tax-deferred general obligation bond, or excuse me, certificate of participation bond. For our particular issuance, we've earned $3.6 million since 2005 when this bond was first sold. Between 2007 and 2012, the first 5-year period when this bond was first sold. According to the calculation that was done by a group called PFM, we were only allowed to make about $3.3 million. So we owe some money to the federal government, specifically the IRS, for the extra interest that we earned, plus the amount of time after the end of the first period, which is 2012, there's about additional $30,000 of interest that compounded on the interest that was earned. So what we're bringing to you tonight is a request for approval to make a disbursement to the IRS in the amount of $295,580.62 to be specific, to pay back the excess arbitrage that the district earned. It's important to note that as you're doing this, the district hasn't lost any money. The district just earned more in its investment than it was legally allowed to earn. The investment tool that you have on this certificate of participation is earning 4.7% interest. It's phenomenal interest rate. You don't have it anywhere in the market right now. So we made great earnings on that, and it reduced the amount of money that the district had to pay on the debt service. Again, this is a certificate of participation. It's not a property tax on the general population. It's coming out of your facility funds, your developer fees, redevelopment agency fees to help pay for the cost of the high school. So when you look at this particular item, you don't look at this as funds that the district has lost. It's excess earnings that the district is legally not allowed to retain. Any questions?
Any comments or questions?
Thanks for explaining it, Scott.
I need a motion to approve the certification and participation of the arbitrage rebate.
So moved?
Is there a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Item P8, approval of the Reclamation District 900 flood assessment, Scott Landsberg.
What you have in front of you tonight, and you may have received these at home as well, because this is going out to everybody who owns a piece of property in the city of West Sacramento. RD 900 is showing that they have a deficit to their operating budget. Board of Education is the holder of property that the district owns. You see a copy of every ballot that's been attached, and we're asking the board to give us direction on how they would like the ballot returned, whether or not we return the ballot in the affirmative or the negative.
Is there any comments, questions? Board Member Villegas?
Do we have a choice?
Yes, you have a choice. You can vote no, because it's a ballot. Our recommendation would be, To vote yes.
Yeah, I guess that's what I think we were asking is,
Yeah.
what does yes mean, what does no mean?
Well, yes means that RD 900 will continue to be funded, and it does
Okay.
maintenance on the levees that protect the city of West Sacramento. You have the West Sac Flood Control Agency that did the building of the levees, and then you have the ongoing maintenance program, and they, not so much the specific levees, but the bypass canals, the retention pond that you have behind River City High School, the maintenance of those types of things throughout the city, that is what RD 900 takes care of.
Okay,
I make a motion to vote yes.
I'll second that.
All those in favor of approval of the I can't even talk anymore.
Recommendation.
Reclamation District 900 flood assessment. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Item P9, approval of annual declaration of need for certificated teaching, 2016, 2017. Michael Reed.
Good evening, board members. Education Code 44300B requires a declaration of need for fully qualified educators be made in the form of a motion adopted by the governing board of the district at a regularly scheduled board meeting. The only action required of the board is that it publicly acknowledge the annual filing of the declaration of need for highly qualified teachers as required by the California Commission on Teacher Credentialing.
Any comments or questions?
So moved.
Motion
Second.
to approve?
Second, oh, Kobe?
First, second.
I'll
All those in
second.
favor say aye.
Aye.
I need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the board governance. The board trustee did take self-evaluations. I added everything up. I made copies for each one of you so you could see how we all fared on our evaluation. I'd like to maybe go more in depth into this next time, once you guys get a look at it, to see how we voted. For most part, we were all pretty much together. So take some time. In our next board meeting, we can discuss some positives and some things maybe we can do a little bit better. But I thank you all for filling that out. I think you'll find it educational about the board and how we do business. We do have future board agenda items. I'm going to ask that we push that over to the next board meeting, if that's okay with the board. And S1 and S2. And we do have one unfinished item in closed session. If we can go back to closed session.